Well, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Great to have you with us today for another THRIVEcast. I am your host, DJ Eshelman, and thrilled to be here for another day. If you're joining here with me in the chat, go ahead and just say hi. There's about a 20 to 30 second delay today, so it happens. It's the nature of streaming live, so just keep that in mind as you make your comments or questions. That there might be a little bit of a delay, so just make sure you give me some context to your question or comment. That way I know what you were talking about, and I can kind of go back in my mind 30 seconds. Things move pretty fast around here. So, yeah, that's great. Today, Jeff could not be with us, unfortunately. He has some family stuff going on. If you're joining us after the fact in the replay, this was recorded on August 27th, which, as most people in the U.S. know, is about school season. So he's got some stuff to take care of as far as the kids being in school and all that. So we'll give him a pass for today. It's all good. Well, again, my name is DJ Eshelman. Glad to be here with you for another THRIVEcast. And today we're going to be talking about 4 key things that are really important for your IT journey, if you will, or your success journey. And this really doesn't matter where you are in the spectrum. If you're in administration or engineering, or if you are wanting to be more of an architect role or involved with sales or project management, it really doesn't matter. These 4 things always are important within a technical career in IT. I have found this especially true within the end user computing segment of IT that I've kind of cut my teeth on and spent the majority of my time working in. So I thought I'd preface that. Also, I want to let you know, just before we get started, that we have a special going on right now that if you were here during the I guess they call that the crawl or whatever before the show, but right now I have a deal for people that are here in the U.S. anyway that are able to participate in this. There's a little like survey you can run through here at thrive-it.com/book bundle. And this will take you through a few quick questions to make sure you qualify and give you access to 3 books for $48. That would include, when it's available in hardcover, Just Do This. This is actually the pre-production of the um, soft cover, or paperback, I guess is the right term for that. This is actually technically going to be available on Amazon very soon. So for folks in the international markets, that's probably going to be the play. But I am working on a hardcover edition that's going to be a little bit of a different size and a little bit more of a premium experience. And so I'm taking pre-orders for that book for $48. But to kind of sweeten the deal a little bit, what I'm also going to do, if you do pre-order, I'm also going to include the paperback version of Be a Citrix Hero. And as I have the supply to do so, this book right here from Dan Miller, 48 Days to the Work You Love. It's been a great thing. So, and I just sponsored my own video. That's kind of cool, right? So let's get started. So the first thing you need to know when it comes to being in IT, there's like I said, there's 4 things if you're just joining us. The first that you really need to know, obviously, is knowledge. And because I'm kind of doing some things with some letters here, I'll just call this mastery. This means that you are working towards a skill set. Doesn't mean you've necessarily mastered the skill set, but that's your goal, right? We talk in terms of goals instead of where you are, and there's a reason behind this you'll see very soon. But when it comes to that, these are focus areas, right? So when it comes to tech knowledge, this actually is where we default. This is where we spend the majority of our time doing things that are helping with this, whether it be going to classes, whether it be reading books, whether it be reading blog articles, whatever that is. We're trying to get more tech knowledge, and that's easy enough to talk about, right? This is something we need to do. Well, there's 2 things about this that I think are really kind of important. One is that it's never something you stop doing. And this really doesn't matter what technology you're in. There's always something new to learn. There's always something new to strive towards mastery. There's no such thing in the IT world as figuring it out and coasting. It just doesn't happen that way. And so focusing in on mastery is actually really important. Now, this can be a lot of different things for a lot of different people, and that is kind of the second part of this, is that you need to be flexible. The technology moves all the time. This is not something where we are just, like I said, learning one thing and it just works forever. This really is much more of, you might learn something that's needed today, but if you're working for a company, especially, there might be something that's needed for tomorrow. And you might be, one of my favorite terms is voluntold, where they're looking for volunteers, but they're going to tell you to volunteer. In other words, you're not really a volunteer; you're voluntold to learn something new. And that is a story I hear very often. If that's you, just say I was voluntold for this in the comments or something similar to that. There's a very common thing about that, about where we really have to be aware that, yeah, you might be needing to completely change your level of technology. You might have to completely change the technology that you're learning, or in the case of a lot of these cloud technologies these days, there might just be elements of that change along the way, and you have to change along with them. And hey, you know what? That happens frequently. So that's the first thing, is tech knowledge, or what I'm calling mastery. Now, another thing I'll say about this is that it's really important that you keep the perspective of um, the, there's no ranks in this, is what I'm trying to say here. So there's always going to be something that one person knows and another person doesn't. Just because you don't know or haven't been focused on what that other person is knows doesn't mean you are not mastering what you know. I've definitely found this to be true in my career, and this is one thing I wanted to highlight as something that is an example, not a prerequisite, but an example. And that is, if you can focus in on being known for one thing, then that actually does do a lot for your career. For me, it was really getting known as the guy who knew Citrix. Right. This was I brand myself as, after all, let's put it up on the screen here, the Citrix coach. Right. So that's who I am. That's how people know me. That's what you call me. Uh, sorry, that's a callback to my youth there. Call me the Deej, sort of thing. So sorry. But as far as being known for something, if you have a level of mastery with that, become known for even something within that. What I really became known for in the Citrix world was being a consultant, and specifically, even within consulting, being known for somebody who was specific to being really good at infrastructure assessments, for example, design, things like that. That's where I was really more, I guess you could say, gifted. I think it's more of an orientation than a gift, to be honest with you. It's more of just the way people think sometimes. When it comes to troubleshooting, for example, I used to be really good at troubleshooting Citrix. I am not currently very good at troubleshooting Citrix. I'm just not. It really is one of those things where my focus has been so tight for so long that I really don't. It's not that I don't know how to do these things. It's that I just am not practiced of it. I often say that you won't rise to the occasion. You'll only rise to your level of preparedness. Well, my preparedness for tech troubleshooting has gone way downhill as of late because I've been so focused on things like leading practices, like the way it should be. I've been so focused on that figuring out things deep in the mix, I'm not necessarily as quick as I used to be. It used to be something that I enjoyed a great deal and did a lot of, primarily. That's how I got started. Like most of us actually do get started, and I kind of think it's ironic, actually, but most of us do get started using that particular skill set, which is something we'll talk about here in a minute, I think. But regardless, being known for something unlocks more potential. Now, I'm seeing a lot of people stuck in this thing. We're going to talk about, actually, I'm just going to move this up and we're going to talk about this next. I'm rearranging my agenda here. But in terms of being known for something, there is a mindset here, and we're going to talk about mindset next. And being willing to be that person that's known for that takes some courage, and that is important. We're going to talk about that. But what I will say about this is, in a way, it's actually easier to just kind of pick a horse, is the term sometimes used, where you just kind of, even if that horse loses sometimes, you just stick with it and know that that's going to be your I'm deep into metaphor. I try not to do that. But what I'm trying to say is, like with a software vendor, for example, if you're a really good or you really enjoy being a database administrator, picking a particular database vendor that you work well within is very good for your career, because then you can be the person that's very specialized for that. Now, it's not just about what you know, it's about being known for knowing that. Let me say that again. It's not just about what you know, it's about being known for knowing that. In other words, if somebody says, hey, I need to deploy Citrix, I'll just give this example, and I have these needs and whatnot, but our team isn't really confident in this, and they need some help figuring out if they're doing it right. Who do I talk to? And someone who knows me and knows my very tight focus will say, "Oh, you need to talk to DJ. He's going to be able to help you do that." That's what I'm talking about. So that can apply to any field. Now, it does take time to do that, obviously, but it does take a level of being willing to be a master of one, instead of, if you just do everything, if you're just like the Swiss Army knife of the IT world, as I spent my time for the first, I would say, almost 12 years of my IT career, I really was that Swiss Army knife. I just do whatever I needed to. And I just made it happen. Actually, let's go even further than that. Let's take that up a notch and say more like 13. Even within some other parts of my career, even when I started learning Citrix, I was doing other things as well. I was just basically the small business guy, so I was doing all the things, was setting up Active Directory, setting up Exchange, all these kind of things were all me. So I kind of had that uh, level of, just mastery was a broad thing. I was master of none. I was variously just like, plug me in and I'll figure it out kind of guy. And there's nothing wrong with that, unless you want to advance your career. If you want to be really well known, really well paid, even happier with what you're doing, you have to decide something that you want to be a master in, that you want to work on mastering. And so for me in 2011, that you can say 2010, 2010, that became a focus for me to say, you know what, I want to focus in on this completely and only do Citrix. I only want to be known as the guy who's doing Citrix. And I will tell you that when I did that, my trajectory for my career, as far as my earning and what I was doing, I was working less and making more substantially every single year. Every single year I was able to work less and earn more, because I was so focused in on that one thing. Now let's talk about let's talk about mindset. And this is something that we don't often talk about in the IT world. We don't talk about what's going on up here. We just talk about the tech. And I don't want to say that there's anything wrong with that per se. That's not what I'm saying here. What I do want to say, however, is that we need to be aware of how our mind and our beliefs approach a situation. Now, what I was talking about earlier with some of the being known for only one thing, That's a scary thing, because what if you make the wrong choice? What if, the company goes under? What if they're bought and get irrelevant? These are things we have to keep in mind, keep in our mindset to say, yeah, that's a possibility. I'm such a geek. I think of Star Trek Generations, the opening scene to that movie where the uh, I was thinking of this Ferris Bueller guy, but the new captain's sitting in the Enterprise B captain's chair, and he is, uh, yeah, what is he? Faces the situation, and it's risky, and he doesn't want to do it, because he's going to risk all this kind of things, and he asks Kirk for advice, and Kirk says, "Risk's part of the game if you want to sit in that chair." So my question to you is, do you want to sit in that chair? You can play it safe in IT. You really can. I see literally hundreds of thousands of people playing it safe all the time. But if you want to advance your career, if what you're doing is not enough, you have to take risks. You have to take risks. You can't just be the person who drifts along and hope it happens to you. The funny thing is, and the worst part about this is that very often that's exactly what happens, is that you're drifting along and you will somehow be rewarded for drifting along. If that doesn't make you sick to your stomach, it should. All right. A lot of times you are just given raises or new positions just as a war of attrition. You've just been there the longest. Honestly, is that what you want to be remembered for? I was there the longest. I don't. I want to be the guy that made a difference. I want to be the person that actually wanted something more out of what he was giving for his family and his friends. And what, I mean, gosh, I think of what I've been able to do in like volunteer work and charity, because I've had the time and the money to do that. It's been outstanding. I wouldn't give it up for the world, but I can't do that by just hoping someone's going to just hand me something to do and hand me some money to do it. It's not going to work. I have to get into the game and risk a little bit. And so when it comes to that, and I haven't released this video, I really need to. It's a video I shot last year after Citrix Synergy, actually. I was actually shooting it on the way home, and so it was in the car. And so I've stopped doing those videos for reasons of, whatever, driving while you're videoing is not something I currently recommend, but I was doing it. So I haven't released these videos, but there was a mindset thing in there where somebody had said something to the effect of, I don't want to spend time learning about Citrix because I think they might be bought. The thing that bothered me about that is that this is like the discussion every year, like every single year, who's going to buy Citrix. It's just amazing that you can be talking about this as it's going to be the end. Because, I mean, in IT, unfortunately, that's what we see a lot of. We see a lot of, companies being bought and that technology being just basically just thrown aside. But there's a host of problems with this. All right. There's a host of them. But the primary one is, what if they don't? Then you've just wasted the time not learning, not investing in yourself, not taking that little, right now it's a very little risk. It's a very little risk. It's like, the old saying, nobody ever got fired for buying IBM or whatever. I don't know if that's actually true anymore, but whatever. That's the saying, right? It's like you back the slow moving player or whatever, whatever it is. But that mindset doesn't work if you want to advance your career. If you want to advance your career and really be known for something, you've got to be somebody who is going to be willing to say, you know what, this is what I'm passionate about. And I'm going to follow this until I can't be passionate anymore. In other words, if you are somebody who really enjoys end user computing, and specifically you enjoy working in the Citrix technologies, then be that person. It doesn't matter if they're going to be sold next year or whatever, or if they get shut down completely and you're, you know, going to end up having to learn something new. Because part of this journey, part of this journey of learning something new and mastering something or going towards mastery of some new technology is that mindset of being willing and able to learn something and be passionate about it. That's part of this game. If you are just somebody who, again, just drifts along and waits for being told what technology to learn, okay, you might have some successes, and you actually, what you'll probably have more of is late evenings at work and being called in to fix things on a panic. You'll probably have more of that. So there's a risk here, but there's also a trade-off of being known for something versus being known for the generalist, right? So as far as your mindset goes, when it comes to external things that you can't control, you really need to rid yourself of that and say, if I'm willing to learn this and I'm willing to put myself into this and be passionate about it, that is portable. That is not like I can only be passionate for this one thing, that I can only put my willingness to learn and master something into one thing and one thing alone in the entire world. It doesn't work that way. In fact, I think what you'll find if you really dig in is that if you're willing to be passionate about one thing over here, like technology, whatever, let's say there's other things in your life, like for music, for example. If I'm willing to be all in and passionate about the technology world, what does that make me for other things that I really love in my life? Can I take those kind of that mindset about that over to other things? Absolutely. Absolutely. So that means that no matter what is put in front of you, no matter what the circumstances, you will be somebody who can adapt, learn, and grow. Doesn't matter. So if you are passionate about, hanging siding on houses, go hang siding on houses and be known as the guy that does that or the gal that does that, and be fully passionate about learning how to do that better and more effectively, and all these kind of things that go with that, right? It doesn't matter what it is. Find that, get a why behind it, and go for it. The other thing, when I'm talking about mindset, and this is always really tough for people to hear, especially in our current circumstances, and this is the thing that gets the dislike buttons, I'm sure, but I don't care, is part of your mindset of whether you're living in scarcity or abundance. Scarcity or abundance. Scarcity thinking says there's only so much money out there, there's only so many jobs out there. I've got to be like competitive in order to get that. If I'm not good enough, I won't get that. This is the kind of things that scarcity mindset says. It's also saying things like, well, I can't charge if I'm an independent consultant, for example, or whatever. I can't ask for this kind of fee because there's hard times or whatever, or I can't. That's what scarcity mindset typically unlocks, is can't. Right? You just find yourself saying that. I can't be more successful at IT because this other person is in my way, or I shouldn't write a blog post because there's already people doing blogs. This is scarcity thinking instead of abundance thinking. Abundance thinking says, you know what? There is a big wide world out there. And let's take the blog example. There's no way that one blog post can reach every person on the planet. I've literally heard of no blog post ever that has done that. Okay. In fact, these days I'm saying there's a reason that I'm on your screen right now. It's that I've realized that, yeah, okay, some people are covering these things in blogs. Who's covering it on video? Who's doing it this way? There's that kind of abundance of audience, I guess you could say, that there's always somebody who's going to want to see it a different way or hear it a different way, or that needs some repetition in other different ways to get it. So I'm happy to provide that. This is something where I'm trying to be as multimedia as I can these days, because I've realized that it's something where, it doesn't matter if someone else has already said what I'm saying. In fact, abundance thinking says if I say it, that strengthens the other person as well as me. It's that kind of, I'm really deep in the metaphors today. So the rising tide lifts all ships kind of thing. In other words, the abundance mindset says the more we do, the better we all are. All right. It's not that, I have to take something from another person. I don't have to, you know, like try and get you to watch me instead of someone else. No, that's not what we're about here. If you watch the other episodes, that's not what we're about here. In fact, one of the things we love the most is bringing other people on to our show. So if that was the case, then we wouldn't really do it that way, would we? Um, so honestly, it's really not about whether or not there's a finite amount of things we can go towards or a finite amount of people that we can reach. We don't believe in that. What we believe is that there are tons of people out there that we can reach. Well, it's the same kind of thing in the IT world as far as like jobs, I'll say, for specifically. Now, I hear all the time, oh, I've been applying for jobs and I've been applying for jobs and nobody's hiring. When I hear nobody's hiring, that says to me that that's scarcity mindset. If I hear someone say, you know what, I'm doing these things and I haven't found them yet, but I know they're out there. You know, they recognize something, and this is really really key when it comes to mindset. Especially in information technology. There's other jobs that this applies to as well, but within information technology, usually timing is everything. When it comes to especially traditional employment, usually you have very small windows where the exact company that you want to work for is hiring at that exact moment. And so that has to align, right? That's, yes, a difficult thing, but that doesn't mean that that's like a hard no, you'll never get it, nobody's hiring. That just means you haven't found the window yet. So one of the questions that I often will ask the people I'm coaching is, okay, in that scenario, what does that make possible for you now? What does not having a job right now make possible for you? And that's a hard thing to hear, right? You're thinking about your survival. You're thinking about, okay, what am I going to do to feed my family or whatever? That's what you're thinking about. So thinking about what it makes possible isn't something that comes in. But an abundance mindset says, oh, well, you know what? I don't have I don't have to get up at a certain time in the morning. I can use that time for advancing in my other skill sets, or I can, do some research, or I can do some writing, or there's a host of different things that makes possible. Again, is it a risk? Yes. But that mindset of there's plenty out there, I just haven't found it yet, or there's plenty out there and I'm going to go get it. That's the mindset. If that makes possible some time while you're looking, then the beauty of this is that the more time you spend kind of building yourself up, the more attractive you are on job interviews. I see this all the time where um, I, whenever possible, I try to coach someone just before they go into a job interview. Not maybe that's just before, but at least a day before, that sort of thing, to work on their mindset a little bit and help them see the positives. Because if you are in that constantly getting just beaten down by nobody's hiring and all this kind of mindset, then the odds of you doing a really good interview are really low. You really do have to get to that level of preparedness. It's not an occasion you're going to rise to just automatically. You're not going to walk in the door and automatically be this, you know, on the ball, happy, perky person that's going to be hired. It's just not going to happen that way, folks. You have to be prepared. And one of the ways to do that is to say, you know what this makes possible for me not having a job right now is some ways that I can get better prepared, or even better, get better honed in on exactly what I want, so that I only see that. And here's the other part about the abundance mindset. The abundance mindset is that if I, again, am known for something, then I don't have to find it myself. And I'm not into like the woo woo kind of thinking of the universe is going to go pluck it out for me or whatever. I am totally not into that. What I am into is intentionality. I'm into intentionality a lot. And that means that I make very clear what I want and why I want it. And I make that known to others. So here's what that does in an abundance mindset. That says to others, hey, DJ's looking for this. I just saw that. I need to let him know about that. You catching that? How many people do you know that are looking for work and are telling you everything they're doing about not just looking for work, but what they're excited about? How many people are doing that? Well, probably not as many as you think. Usually those are the ones that get hired pretty rapidly. If they're not talking, instead of talking about what they're looking for a job, they're talking about what they're excited about what they're passionate about. You're much more likely to get recommended for a job, or to have somebody say, you know what, I remember that Joe was talking about that, and I'm going to let him know about that. Oh yeah, you know what? The other day, I remember Susie was telling me that she was really excited to learn some new things about Microsoft WVD, and there's a company right here that's just wanting to implement that. I wonder if she'd be interested in that. You see how this works? If you just have a scarcity mindset of just having to go out and get it yourself, then nobody's going to be able to work with you on that. So that mindset, much more important than people tend to think about. So much so that that very likely will be the approach of my next book when I get around to starting that project. Speaking of books, let's talk about methodology. This is application. This is where your knowledge and your mindset meet the road, if you will. This is where you actually are applying what you've learned in a practical kind of way. Now, there's a lot of different methodologies out there as far as like project management and things like that, and that's usually what people think about. And there's good reasons for that. And that usually is because if you are working with a company, usually there's standards in which you're working that need to be followed. And that standard of practices is oftentimes called a methodology. I think of it more like a framework of things that you are focused on at any given time, or with any given project, for example. And that you can quickly think about, okay, what do I do when I'm in this section of the framework? So I talk about in this book is where I introduced for the first time my methodology that I've used with companies that I've been developing over the last, I would say, well, hard developing for the last 6 years, that I've been, as I implement with more different places and work within different teams and things like that, that I find most effective. And so what I decided to do was boil this down into 4 different things, and I'm liking fours today apparently, so just bear with me. And if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments, and we'll try and get it taken care of for you. But the 4 things you need to know as far as a methodology is that I wish I could draw a circle or something like that on the screen here, but it is we can point to the logo that should be up here, the Thrive IT logo. You can see how it's a circle that iterates kind of thing. It's a constant flowing thing, and there's four things within that. So the first thing that's within it that you need to know is understand. The first thing within my methodology, you need to know what it is you're after, right? What is the goal? What is the why of a situation? And that's understand. And so a lot of people have said this a lot of different ways, but what I find is that if you apply this within any circumstance, and actually, I'm applying this methodology in my own life. I'm actually applying this to my direction in general of doing things, and going back when I don't meet a goal in the methodology, I go back to it. So the first goal you want to meet is, do I understand all the implications of whatever the project is, for example, or whatever the goal is? Do I understand everything I need to about that. Now, there's some things within IT, for example, that you often do with this. Within information technology, IT, you typically will do some sort of assessment. You'll do they'll have conversations with like management, for example, about what the goals are about this. If it's something as simple as like updates to the operating system, that sort of thing, you just want to understand, okay, what are the reasons for doing this? Is this something you want to do right now? Is this something that affects other things? You just want to understand everything you can about that particular thing before you take any actions further. So understand is the first gate to kind of get through, if you will. That's the first thing you want to make sure you do before you move on to the next phase, which is plan. So in plan, you are actually doing things like setting forward a timetable, a design. Sometimes if you need to actually do like a larger um, project, you might have or actually not a larger project, you should have a design document, for example. You've taken all the data you've gathered from your understand phase, and you're now putting that into a document form or some sort of thing. Even if it's just a simple operating system update, for example, you're still putting that into some sort of a plan. This is where change control things like that come in. So you're doing this, right? If this is a life plan, for example, like this is what I'm working on this afternoon is a little bit of life planning of saying, okay, what do I need to come back to and reassess, understand? Okay, yeah, I want to do these things, and so now I make a plan for this, and I say, okay, what is most important to tackle first? Okay, when do I want to have this done by? Okay, great. What are these goals going to actually look like as far as what does success look like? These are the kind of things we put into our plan. Once we have a plan, then we move on to what I call change. And change is when we're actually doing the thing. We're actually making the adjustments or whatever it is to what was previously just kind of held in steady state, if you will. So in the example of just simple updates to an operating system, for example, we are actually making those changes so that they are now done, right? So we're enacting the plan. It's easy enough. Those are small things. But in a bigger project, that might include a whole host of different changes we need to make. Even if we're not doing that like in production, we're still changing something or building something for the first time. That's still something, it's a change to what we had before, right? So that's why I kind of try to keep it to these simple terms instead of things that are like not broad enough to cover the mindset of what we're doing, right? So change is actually one of the easiest to describe. It's actually one of the shorter chapters in the book, actually. So and as I said chapters, I meant sections, but honestly, it is something where there is a lot to know from a methodology standpoint of, okay, we don't just push things through and then put this in front of users without doing some specific things. And we don't just, I don't just blurt out the things that I'm building to. There are some exciting things that I'm building to. Trust me. There are some things that I can barely contain my excitement about telling you about. But I need to build this up enough first, even if it is just going to be released in the beta, which it is coming soon. um, I can't tell you everything about it right now because that would be unwise, and so I would just set myself up for failure if I did something like that. So I've got to go with an approach of, okay, what do I need to build first? What do I need to build second? What do I build third? Or if it's a life plan, for example, then it really does become, okay, what the kind of things do I have to focus on? Instead of just saying I'm going to lose 60 pounds next week. That's not really realistic, right? So that's not a realistic thing to change in my life, not safely anyway. That's cutting off limbs territory, and that's probably not great. So having a better step-by-step process in my plan to make those changes are what's necessary there. So that's more or less what the change part of the methodology is. The fourth part of the methodology is one that we kind of don't think about enough, I think, and that is maintain. We don't think enough about it because we spend the majority of our time there. we actually, you know, that's the goal, right? Is to get to something that is a more steady state, that we can actually say, okay, let's not just sit back and enjoy, but let's keep things rolling. We know what success looks like. Let's keep that success running. Now, the thing that people miss about that in the IT world, there's a lot of things that we get missed about that. We get so hung up in the efforts of making changes to things that we don't think about the future. We don't think about, okay, well, what do I need to do for like backups, for example, or what is my plan if something does go wrong? That those sort of things often get missed, and that's the things we need to kind of fill in the blanks when it comes to maintaining. This is also like where troubleshooting and things like that come in, and things like that, to where we say, okay, is there a need that's big enough that we need to go back to our understand phase and say, let's start this cycle over again so we can get back to a steady state that actually meets the need of the company, for example, or that meets the right criteria for your life, that sort of thing. That's where a good methodology works. And that was a very quick, probably way too quick explanation of that. I'm trying to work on more of like a interactive course kind of a thing for that. But we were overwhelmed with other things going on right now, so I haven't been able to actually do that. But that is something that there are some lessons, obviously, that are there. You kind of get a preview there, but fortunately, it's all in the book, so you can get that. And we'll talk about more of that at the end of the episode again. Okay, so let's go on to the fourth thing. The fourth thing is mentoring, and I used to refer to this as coaching incorrectly, and I want to correct that for people right now. Coaching is something where you are trying to guide someone towards more of a life outcome kind of a thing. It's much more of a, what do you want out of things? What is it's important to you? That's what a coach, or a good coach anyway, will do, is say, what kind of things are most important for you right now? What's going to make our interaction fantastic? That sort of thing. These are the kind of questions that a good coach asks, and there's good reasons for that. So as far as that goes, it's also not a teaching moment. I don't, even though I do a lot of it, I don't list myself as a teacher. Mostly because a teaching, it's a very specific kind of thing you're teaching. You're not saying, okay, what do you want to learn today? You're saying, here's what I need to teach you today. That sort of thing. Are you getting that? Does that make sense? A teacher is specific to teaching. Now, mentoring is something very different. Mentoring is very much a peer-based, here's what worked for me, and you can follow this example, adapt it, whatever. You're working within these various systems to make success happen. But a mentor is somebody who is looking at your life and saying, here's what I would have done differently. So if you're hearing this correctly, you're hearing that mentoring is not always 100% ideal in 100% scenarios. It is very specifically if you want to achieve a specific goal, if you want to, whether that's a back to mastery, whether that's a being successful within a company. Sometimes you'll be assigned a mentor. This actually was something that helped me a great deal when I was doing work with Citrix Consulting Services. Is they noticed that I was struggling in some areas, and assigned a mentor to me to say, let's work with you to build these areas up. And honestly, that experience of me being open to say, yes, that's a good idea, let's do that, me dropping my pride and saying, yeah, okay, let me get mentored. There's a couple of individuals that come to mind, and maybe I won't mention names. I haven't really talked to them to get this clearance or whatever, but there are especially two ladies that I hold dear to my heart, because they were fantastic mentors of not trying to teach me how to do things necessarily, but to say, well, okay, this worked for me. And okay, yeah, I see you maybe don't get this. Let me try and explain this a different way or whatever. Or actually more appropriately with one of them was, oh yeah, okay, I see you're you're not getting this. Here's who to go talk to. Here's who to go to figure this out with. But learning by example is one of the ways I learn best. And so finding mentors for me was really great. One of them I actually do talk a little bit about in the book, because there's uh, some, when it comes to like doing documentation, it's where I learned a lot by uh, absorbing some things that somebody else said. Okay, here's what works for me. This is how to look at how I look at this, and here's what works for me. And that immediately clicked for me, and saying, yes, that works for me as well, because that fits with my somewhat engineering mindset of thinking. If I can put this into a formula, this will work. And so that's what I did. And I'm sharing that forward. I share that in the book. It's what I call the magic paragraph. Um, and we won't get into that right now. It's not really the discussion, but the key here is finding somebody that is going to help you along your journey towards success in a specific thing. For me, it was, I wanted to be a better, specifically, leader within consulting. I was a good enough consultant, that was fine, but I was leading teams, and I needed to be better at leading teams. I needed to figure out how to do that. And the other aspect of this I want to talk about with mentoring is that you need to become a better mentor. You need to be somebody who is, mentors are often people that you kind of look up to, that sort of thing. That's naturally part of it, even if they are peers. In my case, I even had mentors that technically are at a lower level than me. At whatever aspect that is. It's important to know that a good mentor helps you be a better mentor. A good mentor helps you be a better mentor. Paying it forward is really important, and being a person that is actually able to kind of breathe life into others and make those interactions better than they were before, that sort of thing. That's like what a good mentor does. Now, there are situations where people will pay for mentoring. I don't know if that necessarily works as well, which is why I usually recommend that people use a combination of things. Mentoring works good in circumstances where this is a specific thing that I approach in a specific way, and you can kind of take it or leave it. Or here's some things you might want to consider. Here's some resources. Here's a person to talk to. They're kind of that overlay. In American football, if you have a good team, I don't have any flags up this year, but there's certain teams that I've really respected over the years, and certain ones that I haven't. And there's some things about teams that I've really respected over the years. And please don't hit that dislike button, but the Steelers are my favorite team, have been for a long time. And there's some reasons for this. The reasons that I like the most is that, one, they don't go through coaches very often, right? They've had very few coaches over the last 40, 50 years. They're in it for the long haul with these guys, right? But the good coaches that I've seen, especially some of the last 4, I would say, have all passed on something that I think is really important, and I see more strong in that organization. And there's some others that I really see this in as well. But there's an element of mentoring among the players. The senior players, those that have been there longest, will take other players under their wing and guide them. And it works in certain circumstances, certain ones it doesn't. I mean, to call out like Antonio Brown, for example, there was a situation there where he was trying to be mentored, and he was trying to, the people that were on the team mentoring him realized that they couldn't really, like, that you can't control a person. You can really only say what works for you in a situation, or, you might want to look into this or that sort of thing. And so a better way to say this is how we behave. This is our culture. Let me tell you about our story, that sort of thing. That's what a good mentor will do. A good mentee and somebody who not only listens to that, but wants to be that leader as well. And that was where I found some lack with that individual. And unfortunately, some things went to his head and things just kind of exploded. I mean, it was just like things just went out of control so fast because he wasn't really operating within the culture from what I could see. I could be wrong. I don't know. I wasn't there. I don't know. But you can see kind of the elements of things. You can see where things fall apart. And so, yes, this applies to mostly information technology is what I'm talking about with these 4Ms. But it kind of flows to a lot of pieces of life, which is frankly pretty exciting for me because this makes it pretty portable. I can talk about this pretty much anywhere, which is great. But embracing that mentoring and being willing to be led and being willing to learn about what success looks like and adapting that strategy for your own is really important. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And this is where the other elements come in. Teaching, learning about things, uh, finding a coach to work with that is specifically oriented towards your personal success, not like what you should look like, but saying, it seems like you're struggling this, maybe try some of this, that sort of thing. So that is where a good coach comes in. But the key is to do it, right? So let me go over these 4 things again. So we have mastery, where you're striving towards knowing a specific thing and being really known for that specific thing. You are known for knowing. You have mindset, which is really much more of how you approach what you're doing from a what is possible kind of standpoint and why you do things and being very connected with that. You have a methodology, which is your framework of how things get done. And then you have mentoring, which is people that are helping you along to know how things are done in a specific environment. One of these days, I will get a smart order with that. Maybe I don't think this really applies to like the iterative kind of thing that a methodology does, for example. But I think these keys are really important. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to us. You can message us here or whatever. If you have a question and you're watching this after the fact, which at this point everybody would be, uh, feel free to leave a comment and we'll try and answer that as we're able. Obviously, got lots of things going on, but we like to take some time and answer your questions whenever you have them. So feel free to just leave them in the comments there and we'll do that. But really quick, before we go, I wanted to talk to you about 2 more things. First off, like I was mentioning earlier in the broadcast, I do have a thing that's going on for a very limited time frame here, which is that you can get the book I was talking about earlier, Just Do This, for $48 in hardback. Obviously, I don't have that in hand; it's still in production, but you can pre-order that on hardback. And as a thank you, not only are you going to get all the bonuses that are involved with that, the course that I'm working on, and all these kind of things that are going to come with that over the next few months. There's going to be an audiobook that I'm going to release about this. There is going to be a some kind of companion course kind of things like specific learning about specific things that are deeper dives, that sort of thing. There's going to be a series of Ask Me Anything sessions, that sort of thing. There's a lot going on with this that is coming. So you'll be able to get all of those with that $48 purchase. But also, I'm going to also ship, if you're here in the US, a copy of Be a Citrix Hero. I'm signing both of these, by the way. And then as much supply as I have left, this book here, 48 Days to the Work You Love, which honestly, let me tell you a little bit about this. So my friend Dan Miller wrote this a good 20 years ago, but he updates it every 5 years. And this particular one was the edition that kind of pushed me towards being into independent consulting in the first place. This is what kind of unlocked that mindset for me of saying, you know what, I can go even further than I was going. I can get known for this and soar. And so it's kind of weird how things have worked out, but I moved here to Franklin, Tennessee, where Dan lives or lived. He just moved, and I was at his house, and he was mentioning that he had boxes of these books that he didn't want to move to Florida, and so I said, okay. I'll buy them from you. And so I bought a lot of these. And so whatever supply I have, if you buy this bundle, I'm going to include that book along with that for as many more as I have. It's yours along with your bundle purchase. Let me put up a QR code and the actual the rest of what I'm talking about here. So scan that QR code or just go to thrive-it.com/book bundle and you'll be able to order that. My intention is to leave that link up as long as I possibly can. Even if the current promotion ends, I will just put in whatever the current promotion is. If you live outside the US, go ahead and go through that process. That survey will actually register you for at least the kind of what I'm calling the level 1 bonuses with the book. And I'll be able to email you when there is international distribution of the paperback, hardback edition. That is coming, but that will be through Amazon and not through me directly. What we have up on the screen here is all through me directly here in the U.S. But internationally, that's what that's going to look like. If you want it on paperback, you can go to Amazon and grab that. But if you want the hardback edition, like I said, if you pre-order it, I'm going to make sure you're taken care of here in the U.S. Internationally, that's more difficult because of shipping and whatnot, but we are working on that. And if you go ahead and register, I'll email you when we have that worked out. That's the way that works. Cool. I will leave that up on the screen for a little while longer, but if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. And it's fun when I'm doing this myself. I can't have somebody like distract you while I'm clicking on the buttons or whatever I have to do here to make the show work. So anyway, thanks for being with us today. If you enjoyed this show, there's a couple things I'm going to ask for you to do. One, just hit that like button. That actually does help with the way YouTube views things. It's like, hey, you like this, so you'll probably like this, that sort of thing. So that actually helps a great deal. So the more people that are kind of like the things that you like will be pointed more towards things like this. And so this is a great way to help grow this channel. And if it's been valuable to you, I do ask that you share. I'm going to put up a different link here. That works for when we're live, but what you really want to do is share the link I don't have on the screen or in my queue. Anyway, it is thrive-it.com/subme. This will get anybody who gives that link a pop-up that says subscribe to the channel, and you click yes, and then you can click that little bell icon after you do that, and it'll actually get notified of when we're either premiering a video or live, which we tend to go live more often than premiere, but we do have some videos coming up soon that we'll be kind of pre-recorded stuff that we'll be premiering and discussing. We're also working on our blog at thrive-it.com. It's not currently, as I'm recording this, fully up yet, but we are working on some ways where you can register there and get some additional content with all of our videos. And so we do like a PDF breakdown, that sort of thing, and some other kind of cool things that we're doing with those blog posts. And also along with that, there's some mechanisms we're trying to figure out as how you can better support our channel from a financial standpoint, because the things we're doing these days do actually cost money, and this is currently out of my pocket. So hey, there's some things that you can do. I mean, doing things like buying the books does help a great deal, but there's some other things that we're working on as well where you can be getting some additional value and helping us at the same time. So look for that in the coming weeks and months as we do that. So again, great to have you with me today, and stay tuned for next week. Probably going to be another potpourri discussion. Might be somebody on. We'll see. It's kind of coming up to the Labor Day holiday, so getting things scheduled has been a little bit of a challenge for that particular episode. But we'll just go on with whatever it is, regardless. And so, hope to see you again here, same bat time, same bat channel, next week at 10 o'clock Central U.S. time. Cheers, everybody.